Hey guys, Michael Majors here for our Deck Tech with 4-Color Rally. By the time that you're watching this video, my article on the select side of Star City Games has been up for 2 days now. And if you've read it, you should know that I think 4-Color Rally is just the best standard deck by a mile. Unfortunately, Oath of the Gatewatch has given us lots of new tools, so it's not exactly clear to me what the optimal configuration for the deck is right now, but...
How is that unfortunate? I have too many good cards to play.
Well, it's just tough to build Magic decks, man.
Yeah, Magic is hard.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes problems can be a good thing.
Maybe you should play more Elvish Visionaries in your decks.
We'll get to that in just a second, Ross. Give me a minute. Before we get to my favorite new owl friend, let's talk about kind of the 4-Color Rally and some of the obvious inclusions. So starting at the top here, we have Jace Vryn's Prodigy, the best card in Magic Origins, the best card in Standard, you name it, best card period. Hopefully you bought them before they're $1 million, but oh well, so it goes.
I certainly did not.
Yeah, me neither. I'm real stupid. Jace Vryn's Prodigy, Sidici's Faithful, Zulaport Cutthroat, Nantuko Husk, Grim Horror Specs. This is kind of like the traditional shell of the 4-Color Rally deck. It's kind of the draw engine with Grim Horror Specs, the sacrifice engine with Nantuko Husk, the unsummon on a stick, Sidici's Faithful. Jace Vryn's Prodigy might appear strange if you haven't seen this 4-Color Rally deck before. What you'll notice is that we're only playing 8 spells, but the spells we are playing are extremely powerful. I'll get back to Collected Company and Rally the Ancestors in a minute. But Jace is able to loot creatures into our graveyard, which is extremely powerful with Rally the Ancestors, give you some card selection and some redundancy. Just obviously an incredible card. It's proved its worth at this point. I guess we'll go ahead and get to my new owl friend, Palace Familiar. Now, Ross has been known for casting a few Elvish Visionaries in his day, and
this card is not Elvish Visionary.
It is correct. It is not Elvish Visionary. It is a flying bird that, when it dies, draws a card. So the old before Oath of the Gatewatch Rally deck played Catacomb Sifter and Elvish Visionary, and was much more slanted towards green mana. But these two new awesome Oath of the Gatewatch cards, Aelie Eternal Pilgrim and Reflector Mage, are, as you can tell, require white mana. So the deck has had to shift a little bit. Previously, Rally the Ancestors was actually the only white card in the deck. But now, to support Reflector Mage and Aelie and have a more stable mana base, I've kind of moved the deck away from green to the point where I'm only just splashing Collected Company. And to facilitate that, I've had to change Elvish Visionary. We're playing a subpar version, but Palace Familiar does have a few perks. Obviously, it has flying. So what this does is allows the deck to function a little bit better from flying aggression, like Thunderbreak Regent, Culligan, things along those lines. Mantis Rider. Previously, 4-Color Rally was really good at like locking down the ground, but was pretty vulnerable in the air. So Palace Familiar does actually serve a purpose there. Getting to some other cards before we talk about the new stuff. Fleshbag Marauder has seen some play in some lists, including Reed Duke's Grand Prix winning list. Previously, I had it just on the sideboard, but as I'll get to in a moment, I think the deck in general 4-Color Rally is much better at actually just like handling the battlefield and just going toe-to-toe with its opponents. And previously, I had some Murderous Cuts, but instead, now I have Fleshbag Marauder. The deck is much more creature-oriented. Liliana Heretical Healer kind of, to the same extent, helps that. Previously, it's not that Liliana was bad or whatever. It's just it was extremely difficult to cast. And again, because we've kind of moved towards this more of an Esper Rally deck, Liliana is much easier to cast. All right, getting to the new stuff. Aelie Eternal Pilgrim. 2 mana, 2/3 Death Touch. Proper noun. Sounds like it should be from a Commander product. It's not. It just does everything. It blocks Anafenza, Siege Rhinos for 2 mana, trades with them. She is a sacrifice and a life gain effect. And her ultimate ability, for lack of a better term, is extremely powerful and is an alternate route to win the game.
What does it even do?
For 1 white and black mana, you can sacrifice a creature and exile a non-land permanent.
That's pretty good.
So she just kind of just machine guns everything. Especially with like Sidici's Faithful, 04, lots of toughness. You can gain lots of life with Aelie and just kind of go off on your opponent in like these really long, drawn-out contests. Reflector Mage. The last time Ross and I did battle, if you were able to experience that, you might have seen Ross get absolutely manhandled by Reflector Mage. So I think maybe Ross has a few words to say about the powerful new edition.
Yeah, this card, man. It was something that everyone had their eye on when we saw the spoiler, because normally we don't see Manowars or Aether Adepts, if you're a little newer to the game, have this level of power and even slightly better stats just as a creature. And we all expect it to be good, but it has exceeded our lofty expectations, which is generally either a good side or a bad side.
Not usually how it works, right? Yeah.
That generally we're more optimistic during spoiler season, and Reflector Mage is even since then, since we've been playing games outside of versus videos, every time that card gets cast against me, I just want to vomit.
Yeah.
I always have a second copy of the creature you bounce every time.
Reflector Mage is just sick. One last thing to note about these new creatures. They're both 2/3s, which, with the printing of Kozilek's Return, is actually quite relevant. The front end of Kozilek's Return only deals 2 damage to all creatures. So this rally deck is actually fairly, resistant to that card now, which is kind of odd. Even though Kozilek's Return is a new card, that's still something that people need to adjust to. I think the ramp decks are likely to play a bunch of Kozilek's Returns.
Agreed.
So getting to the spells. Short and sweet, we have the namesake of the deck, Rally Ancestors. This is what makes the deck both a combo deck and a deck that can just grind. It can be played in the mid game, just generate a bunch of value with draw triggers, drain triggers, bounce your opponent's creatures, gain a bunch of life with Ailey, kill your opponent's creatures with Flashback Marauder, flip Jace or Liliana. Just does everything.
I think that's the card that separates the sort of okay pilots of the deck from the great pilots. The okay ones are trying to hold on to it, thinking of it as this I win button, whereas the great pilots are able to see a lot of different angles with Rally and get the most value out of it by sometimes getting less value than you might expect.
Sure. Sometimes, it can even happen where you just randomly have 2 Sidisi's Faithfuls, you rally for 1, clear your opponent's blockers, and kill them.
Brad did that to me yesterday in testing.
Oh, awesome. And finally, we have Collected Company, which is kind of my vote for the best card in the deck. This is the workhorse that just gets 2 creatures.
I'll second that vote.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variance on the Collected Company, obviously, but your deck's basically just a pile of creatures. Instant speed, get 2 of them. It's extremely powerful. Getting to the mana base, as I alluded to previously, so we kind of have shifted away from the green and have kind of embraced the Esper colors. So some slight adjustments have been made to compensate for that. We have a second Swamp. Previously, the deck was able to get bottlenecked on black mana pretty easily with wanting to play a Cutthroat and a Natuka Husk in the same turn or whatever. And so the second Swamp helps with that. Similarly, we've added a second Prairie Stream and cut a Canopy Vista to support the early blue, white, black requirements. But otherwise, pretty standard stuff. All right, and you can join us in just a moment for the sideboard. All right, we're back here for the 4-color Rally sideboard. What you'll probably immediately notice is that Rally sideboard is pretty simple. We just got some 4s, some 3s, and a few smattering of other options. It's probably a good time to say that Rally is a deck that is not interested in over-sideboarding. So even though I view it as less of a combo deck than most, it's still a creature-oriented deck that's a sum of its parts, so you don't want to just lay into the engine too much. You got to keep your pieces intact. And so what you do want is typically a very specific effect, and you want a large quantity of that. So for instance, you'll notice I have 4 Roshan Clerics. Roshan Cleric, just a clean, simple magic card. Just don't want to lose to a red deck. Good blocker, gain some life. Can be brought back with Rally. Can be get off Collected Company. Pretty straightforward.
Basically been a staple in decks like this for years,
Yep.
and even in other decks.
Murderous Cut is... So this is a card I really like. I've played a couple tournaments with Rally now, and I've had 2 copies in the main deck. But as I talked about previously, Rally's a little bit better at just managing the battlefield now that it has Ailey and Reflector Mage. So now Murderous Cut's just in the sideboard, but it's still an extremely powerful option with Jace Friend's Prodigy. You can just manage the board, kills opposing Anafenzas and other problematic permanents. Just a really clean, efficient removal spell. Dispel does everything. A lot of people are going to be interested in fighting your Rallies and Collected Companies with other counter spells, so it's usually more of a defend your own powerful cards rather than actively try to fight your opponents. But that being said...
They also have Collected Company Rally the Ancestors.
What's that?
Unless they also have Collected Company.
That is true. It is a very important card in the mirror, which some other cards in the sideboard are pretty much just for the mirror. We'll get to in a moment. Flashback Marauder. Yeah, I don't know about this one. This is just kind of the swan of the sideboard, just hanging out. I have 2 in the main. I think it's going to be pretty good.
I think it just seems better than the 4th Murderous Cut, right? You
Right.
don't want to stress your graveyard too much when you already have Rally and Jace, and so having 4 Delve spells is probably too many. This gives you a way to get another removal spell in your deck and also keep your creature count high for Collected Company.
Absolutely. Also, standard is it's weird now. So like Jeskai Black, Esper Dragons, things like that. People are not really going wide as much. We're not seeing as much like a Tarka Red with like Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, those kinds of effects as we have in previous standard formats. Instead, people are playing like a Jace or Soulfire Grandmaster or Dragonlord Ojutai. They're kind of relying on their like one very powerful effect. And Flesh Siege Rhino and Offense of the Foremost, and Fleshback Marauder helps with that. Duress, similar vein to Dispel. It's a little bit better against like Eldrazi ramp. You can take their Ugin or their acceleration spells, but pretty straightforward. It's a proactive card that can be flashback with Jace. And now we have Anafenza, which is kind of a staple of the old 4-color Rally deck sideboard, but I actively think it's probably just shouldn't be here. Again, because I've kind of moved away from the green mana, it's much harder to cast her on turn 3. And I think Anafenza is just far less effective against Rally now that it has Reflector Mage. But that being said, she's still here for now. She's also good against just matchups where you want to attack, like Esper Dragons or things like that. But I'm definitely have my eye on some other options, maybe like Hallowed Moonlight or Kalitas for a sideboard. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys, and join us for Ross Merriam's Deck Tech of Blue-Red Prowess.